see Facebook. I see Twitter.
Yeah, it looks like we're going on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, should be good. All right, I'm out. Have a good show.
Hey, everybody, are we live?
We are live.
Oh, I'm so happy that we are all live here at the Libertarian Party of North Carolina candidate live stream. And I am very lucky today that I actually have 3 people with me. If you don't know who I am, I'm Larry Sharpe. If you don't know who that is, Google Larry Sharpe. I'm the most popular Larry Sharpe in the country. I'm lucky. I don't have that many people named Larry Sharpe. Google, you know who I am. But I'm not important today, which is why you shouldn't worry about that. I have 3 people with me today who are running for office in North Carolina. And people often say, you third parties, you guys are always worried about, president. And that's all you ever care about. That's not true. We run all types of people at all levels in all states all the time. And I got 3 different levels here. I have someone running for the North Carolina House District 99, Mr. Rob Yates. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much.
Awesome. I also have someone running for U.S. Congress here, District 9, the one and only Shalane Etchingson. How are you?
Hi, doing well. Hanging in there. Early voting's a long thing in North Carolina, so the days have been long out at the polling sites, but I'm doing good.
We got to keep moving. And the man himself, top O the ticket, the man running for governor, trying to, punish himself for some reason, but still doing it anyway, the man himself, Mike Ross. How are you?
I'm good, Larry. Just trying to follow in your footsteps. And, thanks to the show Suits, I am not the most famous Mike Ross if you Google me.
There we go. Yes. Well, your name is a little bit more popular than mine. So yes, that's true. A little bit more popular. But I wanted to talk about something specific, which I think it really matters here. Most of the time, people often say things like, well, why don't you just run as a Republican or a Democrat? We get that all the time. And one of the reasons why people don't do that is because there's something inside them that says, I'm not going to just do that. I have a different character, a different value system. I have a different way of thinking. I've got some different principles, something. So I kind of want to ask that question if I could. I want all 3 of you to do me a favor. I want you to think about a challenge that you had to deal with as a kid, not as an adult, 17 years old or under, right? Maybe you were a youngster, 7, 8 years old. You remember something, maybe you're a teenager, 14, 15, doesn't matter. But something that when you were a kid that you had a challenge, it was very hard for you to deal with as a kid. I want you to share it. So whatever you're going to say, be clear, this is being shared with the world. So only pick something you feel comfortable sharing, right? Be very clear. I know I can be charismatic, but it's not just me and you here. This is actually live. So you're going to share it with the public. Understand that that's what we're going to do. And I want you to tell me about that challenge and how you handled it as a kid. Anybody want to volunteer to start? At this point, one of you will say me.
You're lots of quiet dead air. I don't mind going first, but you 2 are the...
Rob, please go ahead.
So, this sort of exercise, there's lots of specific things, but the one that always comes up for me, and I don't talk about it much because it is the past, but shaped who I am. So I grew up like poor, like real poor, like, not always sure about.
So give me a specific instance where that was a super challenge to you. One instance.
It ranges small things where like, you wanted the skateboard.
No, I want a specific thing, Rob. I want a specific thing, a specific time where you being poor really was a challenge for you. I mean, people can be poor and not have huge challenges. Depends how your childhood was, depends how your support system was, all depends. I'm asking you specifically when that really, it hit you and it was a real challenge for you.
I've been paying for college.
Okay. So when you were 17, you had to pay for college?
I was thinking about paying for college. I was paying for college.
So when you were 17, you had to pay for college and you realized, wow, I can't afford it.
Yes, pretty much.
How'd you handle it? What'd you do?
I got a job.
What kind of job did you get?
So I worked at my old high school painting, doing construction. And then I went and worked for a tie-dye t-shirt factory in Fairfax, Virginia called Sundog.
Why'd you go do those jobs?
Because they paid well.
That was the reason.
Yeah, 100%.
So you found an answer, which was something that paid well. Did you like those jobs?
So I ended up, I loved the jobs. Yeah.
Did you love the jobs that you know, or you got there and then all of a sudden love them?
I think I learned to love them.
Okay.
It took time. The better you get, then you start to hit a groove, and then you can answer the question of whether you're enjoying where you are or not. It's very hard to figure that out when you're still learning.
So you found yourself, if I understand right, in a spot where you thought, I don't have enough cash to do what I want or what I should do.
Yep.
And you thought, how do I do that? I'll go make some money. And you thought, I'll pick jobs, whether I like them or not, that will give me money so I can do what I want. And then you learned over time to actually like and love those jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I like that. Who wants to go next? Go, Mike.
I'll go. I got bullied throughout middle school. I was a nerdy kid who was, going to a special magnet school for math nerds through middle school. And, and it wasn't in the best part of town. And I got bullied. I got beat up a lot through middle school. That was kind of challenging.
So when you know that you're going to be bullied, because when you're being bullied, you know that you're going to be bullied again, right? It doesn't go away. You don't get bullied once, you get bullied again and again. So you knew that you were going to go back to school and there were going to be jerks who are going to bully you and shove you and try to do whatever they can.
100%.
How did you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I had to think through the options, right? At first, early on, because it's kind of been something that, I don't get bullied anymore, even though there's still bullies in adulthood. But, I had to look at it. At first, I would run away, right? Would I miss the bus, intentionally miss the bus because the kid who was mean to me on the bus was going to be there. And then my mom's mad having to come pick me up. And then there's, do you be a tattletale? I didn't want to do that. I don't think that that's the right way, getting others to solve your problems. And ultimately how I handled it was I had to learn how to stand up to the bully. And, as that nerdy kid, I wasn't really equipped to do that. So I went to my mom and I said, I want to take Taekwondo. So I did like a year and a half at Taekwondo throughout the 7th grade. And, I don't know if it's because I was an 8th grader and the kids who were bullying me like moved on, but I kind of made a decision that I wasn't going to be bullied anymore.
Do you remember the thing that made you say, Mom, I don't want to be bullied anymore? Do you remember the specific incident that made you go, I'm done, I'm no more? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. I was sitting at a curb, just sitting on the curb with some friends. And a kid came up from behind me and kicked me in the back of the head, like didn't see it coming and knocked me out. And before that, it was just little things, but that was the first time that it really escalated to that kind of violence where I said, this is something I just can't deal with anymore. So I said, Mom, I want to learn to defend myself. Yeah. Got
it. So you were valuing yourself for your intellect. That's what you saw value in. That's what most of your friends, they saw value in your intellect, right? That's why you're going to special school, math nerd guy. I'm sure your buddies who were in that world thought you were great. Probably loved you. Tons of friends who were all in the same world.
We were all nerds, but yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. 100%. So, but now you got some guy who thinks, probably nowhere near as smart as you is my assumption. Probably jealous of your intellect is my assumption, but maybe not, but probably. Thought you were an easy target because you're part of the geek crew. So you're an easy target. And he decides to go one level too far for you. So you were able to take it and deal with it. And you tried for the system to work and the system failed you. And when the system failed you, you said, you know what, I'm taking this in my own hands. And it gave you enough confidence, I'm assuming here, that people actually saw you were confident enough that they actually stopped bullying you. Did I read that right?
Yeah. I mean, when you stand up to yourself, a lot of it comes in the form of, if you push someone and they don't do anything back, well, you could push them twice as hard the next time. And they kind of do that. So, when you stand your ground and, get into one or two real fights, I think the reality is nobody wants to fight. I think the bullies like to pick on someone because they think they're not going to fight back. And sometimes just the risk of even getting, just a lucky punch is enough to stop the physical bullying. But, I don't think it would have gotten to that if you didn't build the confidence to actually stand up, because it was something that went on for years before I got to that point. And it was a lot of avoid, try to ignore, those kinds of things. I think the way we go with a lot of things, sadly.
Absolutely. Yes. Shalane, go ahead. Tell me something cool.
Okay. Well, a challenge,
cool.
right? Yeah.
Yes,
Well, it's
either one.
funny because I have like a bajillion examples of challenges
Mhm.
from the military, but
No, I'm
Rob took
asking
us.
Kate.
Oh, I know. So Rob took us from like maybe his high school years of getting jobs and stuff. Mike took us to the brutal years of middle school, getting bullied on buses. I actually know a lot about that. I would get off and willingly walk significantly farther distance to avoid the bullies on the bus in middle school. But I'll take us to perhaps a challenge at a younger age in like elementary school. So, it just so happened the neighborhood where I grew up, the only kids there were boys. So I had two brothers. There were two sets of boy twins. It was just like this boy gang of kids and then me. And one of the games that we would play often, we kind of were surrounded by different plots of woods and land, would be manhunt at night in the woods. And I, of course, wanted to be part of this. And, but however, I was very scared. I did not like spiders. I did not like the dark. It's scary being in the woods by yourself. So it was mandatory. Like I would always have to have someone be with me. So one of the guys would have to oh, who's going to go with Shalane this time? And so this is how it would be. So I would enjoy it, but also be a bit of a burden. And eventually it started to, it was always a form of punishment for one of the guys to have to be my like escort or guardian for this game.
Yep.
And then my memory is a little fuzzy on the specifics, but I know there came a tipping point where I had to have that conversation with myself. Shalane, you need to figure out a way to be brave. Be brave. This one iteration for Manhunt, prove that it's okay. You can hold your own. And I do remember like sitting in the woods, terrified, just, I don't know. I'm like 8 years old or something. And I can kind of visually see there was like one garage light where that was like my little beacon of hope. Like, okay, there's some civilization there. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it out. But anyway, I ultimately, prevailed being by myself and ended up kind of building up that courage, and being a little bit more.
Well, that's what they say, right? Courage is not being afraid. Courage is being afraid, but still doing the thing, right?
Right.
So,
right.
But the thing that I heard from you wasn't that you needed to be brave. You didn't have to be brave. You could have just kept the boys around you. You could have. But the problem that what I heard is you said you didn't want to be a burden, that was the thing that bothered you. The idea that you couldn't stand on your own, that you couldn't be a burden, that you wouldn't be a burden. And that's why you stepped up. So it was even kind of more of a personal pride or personal issue more than wanting to be courageous. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think, yes, initially that was it. That was more uncomfortable. It was beginning to be more of that uncomfortable feeling, being a burden to others rather than overcoming the fear of being by myself in the scary woods with all the spiders, all that stuff. But yeah, I think about that because it's really interesting foreshadowing for what ultimately, my career in the military and sort of like finding my place in male dominated organizations and things like that. So
100%. So yeah. Rob, let me ask you, Rob, you heard Mike tell you his story. You heard Shalane tell you her story. What do you think about Mike's story?
So I can relate a bit. I had a growth spurt in 7th grade. So my like pushback on the bullying went a little bit different, because all of a sudden I was a lot bigger than them. So certainly like empathic. I know Mike well. What I also suspect is that if someone else was getting picked on, Mike was probably inserting himself knowing what's about to happen because that's how he is. I was just imagining scenarios like that. But now I know how proud he is of his blue belt, and that gave a little color on the motivation to get there.
There we go. Shalane, what do you think about Mike's story?
Yeah, well, I think I found it a bit relatable, actually. There was this, like I said, I got picked on in middle school bus. But what I thought was really interesting in your story, Mike, was actually confiding in your mom that you no longer want to be victimized and what are you going to do about it? And so I guess what I heard is that you guys must have a special relationship to seek support from her and not kind of maybe carry the shame of being bullied. So I thought that was an interesting segment.
There we go.
Yeah. I didn't go to her right away, but getting bullied for a year beats down quite a bit of that. But I didn't want her to solve my battles. I knew that. Like I knew it wasn't, Mom, go talk to the principal. That was never there. And if that was an option, like if I thought that would happen, I probably wouldn't have told her.
There we go. So Mike, you heard Rob's story. What do you think about his story?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard here because I know Rob really well, right? Rob's been on my campaign team, plenty of time at my house, plenty of time at his house. But I think that it helps me understand a little bit of Rob. Rob is one of the hardest working people I know. So knowing that he kind of felt that pressure, right? That I think so many Americans and certainly so many North Carolinians, that pressure to do that. I think learning that lesson at a young age, I think is really important because that drive is something that learning that in the formative years is important. That's why, I try to, seeing that and observing that in the world, I try to instill that in my own kid in a less stressful way. Because when you have to do it, there's some people who might cave under the pressure, but I'm starting a little earlier, right? In little things like, there's a lot of things that will buy them, but there's always something that, hey, you're going to save for this, right? We're not going to buy it for you. I don't care how much you want it. I don't care if it's, you put a goal at something you want to buy. And I think that teaches hard work because I think that a willingness to work hard and be uncomfortable to improve something. I think that's very much character building. So I think that explains why Rob works as hard as he does in everything that I see him doing. Because, if you were forced into that situation at that young age under pressure and succeeded, it just kind of explains that drive and why you're still doing that in your 40s, man.
There we go. Shalane, what do you think about Rob's story?
Yeah, I mean, what I heard was having to really learn to be resourceful at a young age when really there's no option otherwise to problem solve your way through that and overcoming. And then I can't help but also think that perhaps that experience growing up very poor, needing to overcome those struggles and hurdles, which I did not have to do that. I had some jobs, but it was more of just character building leisurely, not to be able to afford basic essentials for myself. So for people like you, Rob, that do that, I have to believe it builds a certain amount of empathy for others. And which I think is actually a really good character tenet, especially for people looking to run for public office. So I have to believe that's also what I heard out of your story, perhaps.
There we go. Rob, what'd you think about Shalane's story?
So I actually feel like I wish I could go back and watch it happen because I bet she wasn't as scared as she thinks she is. She's one of the most badass people, for real. Afraid in the woods? You should be afraid if Shalane's in the woods,
That's good. So
Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it.
There we go.
Fair.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, it's relatable because that actually took me. We played manhunt in my neighborhood too. All the neighborhood kids come out, but our neighborhood was like a big circle, so we largely stayed in the neighborhood, and we only went into the woods if we felt we had to hide. And most of us at that age, I was a boy. I was avoiding the woods too because if I could just hide behind a house, it was easier.
There we go. I love that. So I asked that question because I think a lot of people are wondering, what makes you tick, right? What makes you do the things you do? And very often we have challenges as kids, we start seeing how that works and it connects. Some of you guys know each other very well. You know that it connects. It makes sense. It shows that we do have a character. That's why we push forward and make things happen. But I want to go to another side if I could. I want you all to think about somebody who you care about, whether that is a family member, a close friend, romantic interest, doesn't matter, but someone that you really care about. And as an adult, when that person really disappointed you, you either thought they would never do a thing or thought they made a dumb mistake they should never have made or got themselves in a bad spot you thought they would have never done, or did something that they knew better, whatever the case may be, a loved one who disappointed you. And how did you react to that disappointment when you found out this person? And please give this person a fake name. If it's a woman, call the person Jane. If it is a male, call the person Jim. I don't care what their name is. If the person's a woman, please call them Jane. If the person's a male, please call them Jim, regardless of their actual name. When they disappointed you, how did you react? And again, you're sharing this. So if the person knows who it is, the person may hear it, even though their name will be Jane or Jim. If the person's watching, they may know who that is. Who wants to go first? Not you, Rob. Michael Shalane, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
So there was, so I'm supposed to call, okay, Jim. So Jim.
Jim. Jim.
Jim and I, we had spent a deployment together, and it was a deployment that included seeing combat. It was a deployment that was pretty consequential for women, and what I was doing at the time. And this was when the military still had the combat jobs close to women. Anyway, fast forward, Jim and I ended up being in this particular military school. It's called SEER School. They teach you how to evade capture and all that stuff, and how to deal with interrogation. Anyway, there was these instructors did this thought exercise to show how certain information or propaganda can be used to like divide your group. And at the time, this was in 2013, a real hot button issue was Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense at the time, was like talking about rescinding the women in combat ban. It was very controversial in the military. And so the instructors, out of the 80 of us in the class, there were only 3 women. The instructors brought out these newspapers. We're talking about all this inflammatory stuff. Women are going to be ruined in the military, blah, 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 blah. No one there was coming to any of our defense. And this was very sensitive to me, because I had literally just kind of come from this deployment where we were in combat, all this stuff. And
Jim was with you when you were there.
Yes. And he was there. And the whole time his mouth was kept shut. And I can understand. I understand the debate on all this. I'm very good at not taking things personal.
But you thought Jim was your comrade. He was your friend. Here's
injury to insult to injury. We get done with that. We did get done with that segment. We all kind of break, whatever. And he comes up and then privately says, hey, that's really messed up what like people were saying, And so in private, he reminds me he has my back, but was unwilling to say anything in public. And so it was like me against the other 80 other people. I was really disappointed. And I think he ended up being disappointed in himself as well.
But he betrayed you, and he betrayed you publicly. After he said those words to you, obviously that stung. Clearly that stung. How did you react to it?
I did not have much of a reaction. I think I said like, it would have been nice if you would have said something in there. And I just, it was kind of disappointment that, I looked for glimmers of hope for some people to at least have our backs. I was used to most people not, and this was a great opportunity to maybe have that, and it didn't deliver. So anyway, it was.
So let's move on. Let's go a little bit after. So now this situation is done. You're out of SEER School. You're out. Are you still talking with him, communicating with him, or that was last time you saw him? What was happening after you got out of school?
No, we have still stayed in contact a bit, but not really. I'm not saying
was that a part that made you want to pull away from him, or that was going to happen either way?
No, I think that was going to happen either way. But it just was, I remember like the very real disappointment in that moment.
But let me come back now. Let me come back here. So now what happens? You're done with SEER School. Did he ever come back and say, you know what, that was messed up?
No, not only during SEER School. He kind of like tacitly acknowledged it.
Did you ever confront him again?
No.
Why not?
Because if there's a lot of people I could be confronting. You know, you have to protect a certain amount of your own like peace and win your battles there. But to me, I think.
But hold on, he was your friend though. I mean, he was a
Mhm.
comrade with you. He's not like the other 79 guys, right?
Mhm.
He had a special bond with you. I'm not saying
Mhm.
you should or shouldn't. There's no judgment here. I'm asking a question about you. My question is, why didn't you later on pick up the phone and say, Jim, you know what? That bothered me. What's up with that? Why didn't you confront him?
Because I don't need to. I think the lesson was already
Okay.
learned. The lesson, it
Got it.
was clear he felt bad. And sometimes we learn our own lessons, and it doesn't need to be continued to like belabor it. So I think the point was made. And
And that was good enough for
yeah.
you. You're good.
Yes. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think so.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Disappointed
I like
in that moment, but yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Rob,
Mhm.
Mike, you wanna comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important like point, being able to sometimes realize if you've kind of gotten everything out of it. Like I can relate to that, Shalane, where like if you've got closure, even though it's like partial closure, if there's nothing to improve from continuing to do that, you can hold on to the resentment, which only weighs
Yes.
you down and slows you back, or you can kind of rise above it and move on and take care of stuff. So I mean, I was thinking through what my story was going to be, and kind of trying to foreshadow what questions you may ask me on there as well in the scope of it. And I think that's kind of what I took, and I think that tells me a little bit about Shalane's personality, especially like she's going to move on, and you know, if it's something small where it's like you kind of got that half apology, and it's like, you know, you were still hurt, but it's like, move on. There's you know, it probably wasn't like the biggest thing, especially since it's somebody, you know, since Jim's not really a big part of your life today.
Rob, what do you think? I'm sorry, do you want to say something, Shalane? Go ahead.
Go on, Rob.
Okay, Rob, go ahead.
I started reflecting on like the degree of disappointment is sort of directly related to the degree of trust, and there's types of trust, like a parent and child. And then in the military, like, you got to have each other's back. I mean, I don't know what it's like, but I can't imagine you're out there like actually in an operation and you can't trust someone. That's a bad spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I also we all learn and grow in different ways, and there's teaching moments that we all kind of have in our lives. And so I think it is a big deal. I was used to standing up to myself against, you know, the grain. I'm used to that. But for him, this was perhaps a first opportunity to perhaps be contrarian to the group and put himself out there, instead of being, you know, the homogenous one, which most, you know, dudes in the military are. And so I think for that, it was a teaching moment after the fact. So again, it didn't need to be something that I felt like I needed to continue to harp on. It was sort of kind of.
There we go.
Yeah.
So Mike, you were talking about your story. Tell me yours now.
Yeah.
Someone disappointed you.
No. The problem is that I think Jane, if Jane is listening, Jane will know exactly who Jane is, and I have a feeling that I'll be hearing about this from Jane later. But let's just say Jane is a very, very close family member who I care deeply about and have known for a very long time. And you know, I noticed some things there in someone I love that, and without getting too identifying with like close personal family details, you know, they were making some decisions for themselves that put big red flags up as far as like their long-term health goes.
Got it.
And I tried to do everything I could to stress the importance of this for many, many years. And I'm disappointed, and I don't know whether it's more disappointment in Jane or in myself. My good advice, because it was all very, you know, the best natured, loving advice I could possibly give, but that they didn't heed that advice, and all of those things that were painfully obvious to me that I feared have turned into reality as time has gone on. So, you know,
so now that you have this, you saw the person who you cared about making some decisions that you really thought were wrong.
Sure.
You tried to convince that person, hey, these are not good decisions. You should take some other ones.
Correct.
They said, whatever, I'm doing me. And now you were right.
Yep.
So that's got to hurt you on multiple levels, right?
It
Right.
does.
One that, yeah, she now is not doing well, right? She's having issues that you knew. And the other point you bring up, which is she didn't listen to you. So how do you handle that? How do you deal with the issue that, look, she's an adult and can do what she sees fit, but she affects you because you love her and you care about her.
Yeah.
And look, you can't control everybody, but
Correct.
damn, she should respect you also. So you've got both sides of each of those. How do you handle that?
I mean, it's tough and it's still ongoing, which only makes it tougher, right? But I think part of it is, I mentioned the disappointment, right, is in multiple places. And I think what I've had to do is kind of work on myself for the disappointment myself. And part of that came through to knowing, like, I really did everything I could for a very prolonged period of time, went out of my way far and above and beyond what I would, just do for a random person, right? So I can't really be disappointed because I can't think of anything I possibly could have done different that could have influenced the situation in a different point. And then I look to the other end of that where, the disappointment hurts because, everything I saw coming is reality. And it is, made Jane's life harder today than it needed to be. But at the end of the day, that's one of the things that, I joke about as a libertarian. I'm very libertarian with policy, but like in my household, it's a very authoritarian structure, especially with my,
Yes.
my 13-year-old, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But it's tough. The nature of that relationship is not one that I
Right.
can be a household authoritarian on. So it's one of those things that I think I just kind of had to almost have like a different type of closure but just acceptance, right? There's nothing I can do.
Acceptance.
There's nothing I can change it. I didn't get what I want. But this is someone I love, I can either let that resentment and disappointment impact the quality of the relationship going
And
forward.
some people do.
Right. Which I to me, that would just be taking a bad situation and making it worse. Because at the end of the
There you
day,
go.
I love this person. I want them in my life and my family's life for as long as possible. I'm just afraid that by not heeding my advice that we may be robbed of quite a few years of that. But acceptance is all I can take with that.
Shalane, you are nodding your head. What do you think about when you hear that story?
Yeah, the frustration that you experience, sort of the evolution of it, like you see the problem very clearly, you know the solution, you're doing everything you can to communicate that to someone you love. They're not hearing your advice, the frustration of that. And at what point do you realize, or this is the time I need to let go? I need to let go of this. Ultimately, you cannot control other people. They have to want to do something for themselves. And that's a really hard thing to do, is coming to that tipping point of my work here is done, And so that's what I heard. And I felt that. I think we can all relate to that in different ways in our life.
Yeah.
Here we go. Rob, what do you think?
I have a little bit of a cheat insider because I know what Mike's talking about. But my actual thought on this was like just thinking back 2 years ago, him and I all right, if we're going to do this, we need our wives' buy-in. So we planned a steak and lobster dinner. And in the last 2 years, just the number of things that have happened, we've been on quite a ride. Mike has had quite a ride and still shows up for 3 events a day, fundraising, radio shows. The strain is real. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hope people who are watching or listening are seeing the kind of people that we're putting up for candidates, are seeing the kind of people who are human, who have the same problems you have, the same issues you have, the same challenges you have, and deal with them. And then see how these people would be if they were now in office. Would they be able to understand your issues? Would they be able to understand your problems? Would they have enough empathy? Would they be able to move past things and move forward? That's what you should be thinking in people that you're going to support. Rob, I'm going to ask you your story. Someone disappointed you. Remember, Jim or Jane, please.
Well, today someone was going 35 in a 55 single lane road. That was one of the most disappointing things I've ever had to do. No, I'm sitting here like reflecting on it, and this might sound crazy, but I can't think of a time someone like quote unquote disappointed me. But probably the defining moment for me of the last 10 years of my life, I lost my best friend to suicide 9 years ago. And it really changed.
Wow.
And like, I don't talk about it a whole lot because it's a topic that, you know, can make people uncomfortable. You sort of got to approach it
Yes.
gingerly. I've moved on. It still makes me sad. I still miss them, but like I've certainly processed. But I made a conscious decision. Like, I'm not going to be disappointed about things anymore. It feels like a waste of time. Like, you assess what happened. If you didn't like what happened, you figure out how to make it better and you move forward.
But about how many years ago was this?
9 years and 2 weeks.
So 9 years ago, and you know it was 9 years and 2 weeks. So this obviously affected you, right?
Yeah, the anniversary just happened. So that, I mean.
Yep. So when this happened, I know a little bit about suicide. Being a veteran like Shalane, we probably know people who have committed suicide. I have stopped many people myself from making that happen. And when it happens, I've always said, when I talk to veterans, particularly veterans who are on the edge, always tell me the same thing. It'll be better when I'm gone. And I always say, you think you're ending the pain, but you're not. You're just giving it to those who you leave behind. You're not ending it. You're giving it to everyone else around you. So I know that when that person did it, clearly his family was hurt. People who loved him were hurt. Clearly you were hurt. I'm sure you were disappointed at that time in him. And I would guess disappointed, similar to what Mike was talking about, in yourself. Thinking, why didn't I stop him? Or why didn't I see something? Or why didn't I, whatever story you told yourself. How did you get to a point where you are now, 9 years later, when then I'm sure you were thinking all types of terrible things? How did you make that transition?
So it was quite a year. I had just finished the first half of my MBA program, and I actually, diving into that second year of getting an MBA, I was sort of able to work through the grief without processing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when school ended, I could step back and like, I learned a lot. I mean, and you sort of learn, like, it's really not his fault. I like the example. Someone's like, if you have, you know, lung cancer, your lungs are trying to kill you. If you have a heart problem, your heart's trying to kill you. If you have bipolar or major depressive disorder, your brain's trying to kill you. It's just another disease. And so when you look at it medically and sort of the things that play into it, you know, it was just too much and there's nothing I could have done. And then you start to look at, because then you get regret, right? Like, what are the things we missed out on? What could we be missing out? And then that's where I was like, well, I don't want to have regret. So I'm not going to have regret anymore.
What I heard is that you used work again.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a great distraction for me.
There we go. You're laughing, Mike. What is that? What do you think about that?
No, when you mentioned
class.
No, when you mentioned it, it just tracks, right? Thinking back to his first story about having to work under pressure. You know, coming from that. When you look at both stories together, I just see kind of being forced into that, and you know, he's got that work ethic and the success today. But it seems like you not only used it to kind of relieve economic pressure, but it became a coping mechanism because in those earlier years, right, going through yeah, it's all just tracking, and you know, as your friend, it's kind of just, you know, downloading just more information on Rob and understanding, you know, who Rob is and why Rob is the way Rob is. So yeah, it just that connection that I saw you make just kind of made me chuckle because I was thinking the same thing.
Shalane, what do you think about it?
Well, with suicide, I mean, we're talking about the disappointment here. And I think, you know, I like what you're saying. You generally don't harbor disappointment, that it's pretty unproductive. And I think in this instance, what I hear is like, you'll never get an answer on this. There will never be closure. No one knows except for him what was going on in his head at the time. And having to come to acceptance and peace with that and not harbor disappointment from it, because the closure will never come. And that can be a tough thing, but it sounds like, that maybe built a little bit of resilience for you in overcoming or not succumbing to disappointment, maybe with other things in life.
So all of you, as you move through your life, through your disappointments and struggles, decided, I'm going to go run for office. I don't know why you decided that, but you did decide that. You made that decision. I'm sure when you made that decision, there were some people, when you were making it, I should say, when you were making it, even after you made it, I'm sure there were some people in your life who told you it was a bad idea, right? Don't do it. Not a good idea. Why would you do that? Or something. I'm sure there's some people, or one or more people, who said, this is not a good idea. Or would you rethink it? Or it's the wrong office. You shouldn't run for this. You should run for that, or whatever. They thought your decision was wrong, right? I want you to think about one of those people who told you that. How did you handle that? When the person told you they thought your decision, either to run or for the office you chose, or the timing that you chose, not this year, next year, whatever. Someone who said, this is a bad idea. Don't do this. How did you handle that?
I mean, I'll start on that one. I mean, I'll be honest. I kind of just dismissed and ignored it, because I'm the type of person that I'm a planner. I was a financial planner by trade. So looking and going extra into the details, like by the time I made the decision, I've thought through all of the variables and considerations and outcomes, probably more than most people think about their decisions. So at that point, I'm thankful to say the people that mattered most have all supported me. So the fact that any of those people, my mind was made up, and at the end of the day, I knew why. I had a purpose for why I was running for office. And yeah, I just, if it's something that I can, that's fully under my control and is my decision making, I generally, at that point, I'm not going to let other opinions kind of attack me, attack that on that, especially if something personal, right? If it's something that they're bringing new data, that's one thing. But if it's an opinion about a decision I made, like, it's not your decision, it was my decision. So
okay, got it. Rob?
Mine's a little different. I'm more spur of the moment. I woke up on my birthday in 2023 and I said, I'm going to go register to run for mayor of Charlotte. And my wife didn't believe me. And I came back with the papers and she's like, oh my God. But yeah, the only people I've heard you shouldn't have run are like, I'm stealing the votes. Like, it's always, you're hurting our kids, you're stealing, Okay.
Right.
I always
You're the
show my
spoiler.
share.
You can't run because
Yeah,
my
exactly.
guy has to win, right? That's why.
But you have the graphic that's like, vote for a Republican, vote for a Democrat, vote for a Libertarian, not a vote for a Republican or a Democrat.
Got it.
So I share that.
So, but do you engage when that happens? Do you ignore? Mike says he just kind of ignores and walks away. Do you engage when people go, don't do it, man, because my guy's way better and you're going to screw it up for my guy? When they say that, what do you do?
So if people are coming from that, I try not to engage. I found that people that ask about it are potentially willing to learn more. But if people in the heat of an election season think you're hurting their candidate, they're pretty intractable at that time. I try to show grace. I mean, being in the public eye is a different thing. And I'm not super in the public eye, but enough that the wrong thing gets caught in the wrong place. So then you're always thinking about what you're doing, which is counter to my spur of the moment nature. But yeah, I just try to show grace, and I hope.
How about you, Shalane? When people
happy.
tell you shouldn't do it, don't do it, what are you thinking? How did you handle it?
Well, I'm running as an independent, and we're all third party here, and so I'm sure hear a lot of the, oh my gosh, independents never get elected. Why would you do that? But I also had a lot of encouragement as well from people. But there's one person in particular that really kind of rocked my world with the you shouldn't do it. Because there's people that have different input and advice, but do they really know me as a person? So I would kind of take
Sure.
it with a grain of salt a little bit. But this person in particular had been she's a mentor of mine for many years, over a decade. She worked in politics for 10 years in journalism. She's a career woman. She knows and is enmeshed with the military in a lot of ways, and knows a lot about my career and what I accomplished, and then along with helping me get to Harvard Business School and things like that. And so there were a few people on my short list that I was really, really looking forward to consulting with on this decision. And
when she was negative, how did you handle that?
The first thing she said was, "Is this decision reversible?"
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a negative. Okay.
It was pretty jarring. And I think it was coming from a place of like love. And even though it didn't
Sure.
feel like it at the time, I had to process the conversation a bit. And I had to realize this. I think everything she said was real and valid. This is going to be an extremely uphill climb. It's going to take over my life, my health. I'm going to be asking it. Like, we all know the sacrifices.
Yep.
You're going to be all of this, right?
Absolutely.
Putting yourself at all these things. So I think that's very true. But this is also, I said, this is coming from someone who has been in this space for decades longer than I have. And I think cynicism is a very real thing, especially in politics. And to me, for there to be change and progression, we need to have people to pass the torch. And so she's done her work. She's run herself ragged in lots of ways, and rightfully that would be her mind space. Well, I'm sort of the fresh chicken that's ready to take the torch and can bear this brunt and this burden. And so that's kind of what I told myself to get maybe over that advice a little bit. And like what Mike said, you have a purpose behind it. And when you are so convicted and you're just in alignment with what you believe you need to do, and it feels right, you have to honor that. And so, despite the negative advice, I had to honor what I was feeling in my heart.
I appreciate that. Any comments on that, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, I just trying to envision that, because I mean, I feel very thankful that anybody who was kind of a detractor was people that, like, I really didn't care about their opinion. Like Rob's example, right? If you're a supporter of one of my opponents and you're mad that I'm there, I really don't care. I'll politely engage with you, but I really don't care. It's not going to change my mind. And I'm just very thankful, because I have to put myself there. And if my wife wasn't supporting me, for example, like if when this came in, I have to put myself in that alternative universe where she wasn't supportive, right? Because that's really what Shalane had to deal with that I didn't, right? Because now you have someone who matters, right? Who you respect and appreciate, and who you expect to be in your corner and one of your cheerleaders. And I don't know how I would have handled that. I'm thankful that that I didn't have to have that experience.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's good. Rob, anything?
Just added to the list of things that we deal with.
Yes,
it's so
absolutely.
much. It's so much.
So here's what I want to do, if I could. Rob, do me a favor. I want you to kind of paint a picture in just a couple of minutes of what success looks like at the end of the election. What success looks like for you, whatever that is, any way you want to paint it. What success for your race? What success look like for you? And when you're done, tell people your contact info so they can reach out and do those types of things. Go ahead, Rob, please.
So I'll be honest, I've been a pretty terrible candidate. I've done a lot more stuff, like on the governor campaign and the other LPNC campaigns, talking to Shalane's, doing stuff with the Forward Party, trying to unify other parties. And so I have neglected my campaign. I had a good campaign manager.
Hold on. If that's not your issue, don't worry. Then tell me what success looks like between the Forward Party and the Libertarian Party then.
Okay, fair. So I think we've already had some massive successes. We put on a primary governor debate. We've done a bunch of stuff with multiple third parties going after the State Board of Elections for some really shady things and getting this letter signed. Some of the support in the lawsuits, getting people on the ballot. So those are all really big successes. I think that we have, so I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Larry. I know I told somebody, but North Carolina has 20% of all third-party candidates at the state level in the United States. We worked hard to get here, but there's a long way to go.
So you already had success.
We're trying. And this big media blitz that we're doing in the last week, live streams every night, mailings, all this events, and we've done commercials on local radio, iHeartRadio. So let's see what it returns and then build from there.
How do people find what you're doing then? Do they email you? Do they go to the party? What do they do?
So the best thing is either X, Twitter, whatever it is, which is at Prosper, PROSPER, Charlotte CLT, just Prosper CLT 2023. And
there
then,
we go. That's the place to go.
Or LPNC.org and sign up for the newsletter, and we crank stuff out.
All of those work. Shalane, please tell me, paint a picture of success at the end of election.
Well, in a lot of ways, I feel like we've already met success. Even just prevailing to get on the ballot was success.
Sure.
That's never happened before in North Carolina. And I think a lot of people have recognized that and given my campaign and candidacy attention because of it. Also with success in fundraising, I mean, for being an independent, for all the things, oh, you can't fundraise, you can't do this. We've actually had better showings than other congressional candidates in the state that are running with the parties. So we've met success.
Oh, that's
there.
Great. Wow.
And then, you know, success also looks like every single day when I'm meeting people either at the polls or elsewhere, and they feel, and I'm not to be cliche, but I'm going to use the word hope. People are so exhausted with our state of politics right now and are desperate for some sort of like leadership and decency and a nonpartisan option who's going to be a trusted person serving them. And so to me, it's success every time when people sincerely look me in the eyes and shake my hand and they say, no matter how this election turns out, please don't stop.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
And it's people from all different sides of the political spectrum. And so I think it's this like shared humanity with Americans that we just know we can be better. And
so how can people get a hold of you? What's the best place to find you?
So I have all my contact information on my home website. So there's the campaign phone and email.
What's the website?
It's Etchison for Congress, but the better thing is just Google my name, just Shelane, Shelane.
Here we go.
Only Shalane, it'll come up first thing. But yeah, we're laying a foundation for what I think that people want. They want more options.
Excellent. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so to some extent, I would say that we've had some successes, but I don't know if the real goal is done on November 5th, right? You know, when I set out to do this, I wanted to highlight some of the ways the government in North Carolina infringes and tramples on the rights of individuals and gets in the way of communities and private solutions to actually fixing problems. So bringing awareness to that, waking people up, being able to go into a very conservative or a very progressive audience and deliver the same message, right? The same exact message, regardless of the room, and always have someone come up and shake my hand and ask me more questions afterwards. Because they knew, even if they don't agree with me on everything, they know that I'm telling them the truth. And they know that I believe what I believe and why I believe that. So I view that there. Obviously, there's all kind of metrics, right, as far as percents and all of that. But to me, the biggest success is coming from the little ones, right? All of the people who are not a part of this two-party system, who realize that this team sports of politics, where you just vote for Team Red or Team Blue, when the reality is in DC, Team Red and Team Blue are meeting together with people who don't care about you, and they're going to win, regardless of whether Team R or Team D does. And I've seen a
love
lot of
that.
people of all ideologies waking up to that. So to me, success is how do we take the campaign website, firetheuniparty.com, and really keep that energy.
Firetheuniparty.com.
Yeah, dropping it early. How do we take that energy and that movement to continue to do just that? Wake people up to the reality that the Republicans and Democrats have set up this system that put our grandchildren $100,000 plus in debt, guaranteeing that they'll never be able to repay the stuff that we've already spent. The more and more people we can wake up again to that means we're going to be less polarized and divided along these team sports lines. Because if they can keep us divided close to 50-50, they can keep this charade up long term. If we can ever wake up enough people that those 60% of people who are tired of this two-party system can feel confident in saying, you know what, both of these major parties are not for us, so I'm just going to vote against them. If we can get that 60% to do that, I think that's how we can bring about change in North Carolina and, quite frankly, the United States of America.
I love that. It's amazing. Guys, everybody watching, I hope you see today we had 3 candidates who are very human, who have good stories, who've shown you their character, who provided a pathway to hope and to actual change. You should support them to the best of your ability. Hope this was helpful. Guys, thank you so much for watching this evening.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Larry.
everybody, for coming. I appreciate it.